Aloha. Aloha. Aloha, everybody. Okay, the chair calls this meeting to order. The Puna Action Committee meeting will now come to order, and it is Thursday, February 27th. Time is 5:02 p.m. Mahalo, everybody, for coming. This meeting is held in person and by interactive conference technology. The meeting will also be recorded on Zoom. As a reminder, per Sunshine Law, AC members appearing remotely must keep their cameras on and announce anyone who is with them in the room except for minors. And we'll start with roll call and introductions. So committee members, I'll call you, and I don't see, pardon? Vice Chair Gregory Henkel. Nope, not present. Committee member Kanoy Wilson, also not present. Committee member Jennifer Sheffield. Oh, I don't see. Committee member Leila Kealoha.
Present.
Committee member Susan Osborne. Hi. Committee member Franny Brewer.
Hi, I'm here.
Okay, Micah E. Committee member Marty Morishige.
Here.
And I am Chair Lady Mello. We have a quorum to hold this meeting. And we also have our county staff present here from the planning department. We
have today Cabello Palili and Ms. Shan Miller. These are new staff with the planning department.
Aloha. Thank you. Okay, and so a little bit of housekeeping. Please make sure to keep your cell phones off or on silent mode. If there's anyone here who would like to testify, please fill out the sign-up form and give it to our staff. If Zoom testifiers can please send a message in the chat to the Zoom host indicating which item you would like to testify on. And we ask that everyone please state your name before speaking. To all of us who are attending here in person, please remember to speak toward the owl and the owl camera microphone so everyone on Zoom can hear as well. And first, we'll begin with the approval of the minutes. Chair will introduce the meeting minutes to be approved. The time is 5:04 p.m. And the committee will now consider approving the draft minutes from the December 5th, 2024 meeting.
So moved. Second.
Mahalo. If an AC member has corrections. Any corrections? No? No, okay, Micah. Pardon? Okay. Okay, I'd like to call the vote to approve the minutes.
Aye. Aye.
It has been moved by committee member Susan Osborne and seconded by Martha Morishige to approve the draft minutes from December 5th, 2024. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Mahalo, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. Also, the next portion is, motion carries unanimously. With do I have to list everybody's name? Okay. With those present voting in favor. Okay, mahalo. And then we'll move to the portion of public testimony on agenda items. And the time is 5:06 p.m. The committee will now call for statements from the public. As stated in the published agenda, members of the public may provide public testimony regarding any agenda item now or at the time of the agenda item is called to order. If there's anyone here who would like to testify, again, please fill out the sign up form on the front table and give it to our staff. Thank you very much. So we have 2 people in person who have signed up to provide testimony. Is that correct? 3? Yeah, we have. Okay, okay, so those who are interested in providing testimony will wait till that agenda item is addressed. Do we have Zoom testifiers? No? Okay. So then. So the time is now 5:08 p.m. and the committee will now move on to business item number 1. The overview of ordinance 2024-070, Bill 123, which is the overview of recent accessory dwelling unit ADU bill. Potential discussion and discussion making to follow. Is there anyone who would like to provide testimony on this item who has not already done so? Does anyone wish to make a motion on this item, or shall we move forward on the agenda?
Is actually gonna speak to us on this. I see her on.
Oh. Sorry.
No. Okay.
Please state your name and then introduce yourself to everybody.
Hi, my name is Lauren Cotto. This is it. Yeah. Okay. So my name is Lauren Cotto. I'm the planning program manager for the planning department. I am in charge. I manage the administrative permits division and ADUs are processed within my division, as well as my counterpart in West Hawaii. His name is Joel. Joel and myself, we implement this new section of code actually. So next slide, please. What I'll be covering in this is basically what is an ADU, where is it allowed, and limits and restrictions. My general approach in this presentation is to not run down the language within the ordinance itself, although I may refer to it, and that's the reason why I distributed it, because you can go in and read it yourself. But what are the things that the public that we have seen at the counter has most often struggled with? And some of the questions that we felt like the public asked us most. And so what I tried to do is do that and cover that in the context of the bill itself. So what is an ADU? It is a single family dwelling having only one kitchen. It can be attached or detached from an existing dwelling, only for single family occupancy, and a maximum of 3 per building site. Now you might be wondering, what's a building site, right? A building site is basically a parcel, or a lot. In layman's terms, a lot of people use lot. Technically it's parcel for us, but basically, it's a parcel of land. And so you can have a maximum of 3 wherever it is allowed. Now, you might be asking, what's the significance of the kitchen? Well, a kitchen is actually the feature of a structure that we use to count how many dwellings you have. So if you have one kitchen within one structure, that is one dwelling, right? If you have 2 kitchens in a structure, then you have two dwelling units in there. So that's the significance of the kitchen. Interestingly, the ordinance allows it to be attached or detached. So you can have a duplex structure, 2-story structure, as long as it fits within the height limit of the area in which you reside. You could have, or it can be attached horizontally next to each other. So it allows for duplex or single family dwelling. So you can have 2 separate single homes or two attached to each other. Next slide, please. So where are ADUs allowed, right? We get this question a lot, and it depends on your zoning and your land use. Now, according to the ordinance, ADUs are allowed in the following zone, Hawaii County Code districts, right? Or the HCC, right? Hawaii County Code. It's allowed in single family residential, double family residential, residential ag, family ag, and agriculture. However, agriculture especially has this one caveat, which the ordinance says any building in state land use agriculture shall be subject to agricultural requirements of the Hawaii revised statutes. Now, next slide. Okay. That's significant because most people don't realize that there are 2 types of zoning at operation at any given time on any piece of land. You have generally the state land use and county zoning, right? So state land use is established as chapter 205 in the Hawaii revised statutes. So the state has designated a land use on all land throughout the state of Hawaii. It's in one of 4 categories: agriculture, conservation, rural, or urban. So Hawaii County, for our zoning code, we have an incredible amount of zone districts, but the state categorizes your land in one of those 4 categories. Now, conservation is under the jurisdiction of the state entirely. It's generally run by DLNR. Rural and agriculture, we have shared jurisdiction, meaning there are HRS rules that we, as the county, also have to implement as part of it, which is why there's the caveat in the previous slide. And urban is completely within the jurisdiction of the county. So that's why if you're in state land use ag, you cannot have ADUs. It's actually goes contrary to state land use law. That's why there's, the caveat for ag zone land. So, okay, so next slide.
Can I ask
Yes.
a really quick question?
Yes, and please interrupt me at any time during this
Just so
presentation.
that I remember.
Sure.
Is there a hierarchy with that? Like, does the state trump the county with the zoning, if there's a zoning consideration? Because I've run into things where I see something's allowable with the county, but maybe not with the state, like conservation, for example. So is there a hierarchy?
Not really a hierarchy. However, depending on how legislation is written, you can either be more generous or more restrictive than what the legislation allows. Oftentimes, the state will implement an enabling legislation like the Coastal Zone Management Program, and they say, oh, we're going to have this special management area. But the counties go in and then have developed this special management area map. And so that's a piece of like enabling legislation. However, the chapter 205 of the HRS is a regulatory situation where the state in agriculture has listed a list of permitted uses.
Yeah.
And within the list of permitted uses, that's generally what is allowed in the ag district. However, the state has also put into that legislation, a mechanism we call the special permit to have those uses that are otherwise not allowed in ag to be done in ag, but you need to get the special permit first. So that is the restriction with ag. So I used actually Cowtown as an example of trying to explain this dichotomy. So this is Cowtown, well, kind of Cowtown. This is where we're at. I ate dinner right here at McDonald's. You have, Foodland over here, Lawns across the street, so, generally within this area, right, we all know it fairly well. Can you go to the next slide? Okay, this is county zoning, right? So over here, you have residential, which is generally mustard or yellowish. You have over here commercial. It's in this projector, it's pinkish. It's so village commercial, and over across the highway, you have Ag 20A. So try and remember this, I guess, organization within your head. Next slide, please. So this is the state land use. So as that caveat had said earlier, ADUs are not allowed in the ag district, right? So
Why is that one that way?
so everything in pink here is urban. Okay, but everything in green is not. That's ag. So that's why you can have McDonald's over here and stuff like that. So across the street, you'll remember in the zone district, these parcels are all Ag 20A. But state land use says this is urban and this is agricultural. So although somebody's neighbor could do ADUs, just on the other side on the next door parcel, they might not have the state land use, ergo they cannot do ADUs. So it's very situational. It all depends on what the state land use designation is and what the county zoning is.
I have a question, pardon me.
Sure.
So is that why, I don't know what the official name of the building is, but where they have Starbase, there's those buildings, is that in that pink, that
Yes.
side?
Yes, so it's state land use urban. Starbase, I think, is roughly around here.
Mm.
And did they have to go through a process to get that designation? Because it originally started off with all ag.
I'm not too sure, to be honest. I'd have to look up the particulars of that particular project. Which is, one of the things, it's gonna be hard for me to refer to specifics.
Mm.
Because I'm just talking about the bill and what yeah, I'm not gonna know
Yeah.
the permit history of all the parcels.
Right, but that's, yeah. thank
But you can always come to our offices and ask. We'll be happy to, pull files as many as we can and stuff like that. So as you can see, just from this example of, right in town, it really does depend on what your zoning is and what your state land use is. So you remember all of these parcels over here were in mustard or yellow, RS10. These parcels might be able to do ADUs, but these guys over here could not do ADUs. Next slide. So, within the bill itself, there were limitations and restrictions, right? Beyond just the zoning and the state land use. There are 3 general locations where it's prohibited. In state land use conservation, obviously prohibited, right? It's not within our jurisdiction. In fact, if somebody wanted to do it, they'd have to go to the Office of Conservation and Coastal Lands and ask them, can we even build a house? So yeah, it's completely within the state's purview. Affordable housing projects. There's a slight additional language attached to that, but basically it's prohibited in affordable housing projects. And any location prohibited by ordinance. You will see this restriction placed in a lot of change of zone applications that go before the county council. County council might introduce a restriction on ADUs because maybe there's already too much traffic, for instance, so you wouldn't want the additional density there. Other restrictions. If you are able to build an ADU, only one of them may be an STVR. So if you're thinking of doing a short-term vacation rental, Airbnb or something of that nature, only one of them can be a short-term vacation rental. So on a parcel, you could have the first house and 3 ADUs, but only one of those structures can be a short-term vacation rental. You also have to make sure before coming in and applying for it that you have sufficient sewer and water service. A lot of property owners will find that their parcel just isn't large enough to have a separate septic system in order to accommodate another dwelling. And because a septic system is not just the tank in the ground, it's also the leach field. And the leach field actually occupies a substantial amount of space. So a lot of people find that they don't have the necessary space for the additional septic system, and or they don't have sufficient rainfall or county water in order to have that. Or water supply might say, hey, we can't give you another water unit, so you can't have another meter. So it'll be really hard to put an ADU onto your property because you'd have to work that out with water and sewer and DEM or the State Department of Health. So, you know, there's those things. And then the other restriction that a lot of people come in and are rather surprised by is that the largest size you can build your ADU is 1,250 square feet. That's by ordinance. I didn't make up that number. That's by law.
So that was passed by the state?
No, this is by county.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
Okay, but
yeah.
wasn't the state also involved in getting the ball rolling or to
Not
add 3
really.
dwellings on a parcel?
It's interesting that you bring that up. During this legislative session, there have been a number of bills introduced at the state legislature to try and require the counties to allow for construction of housing in various ways. So
Hey, can I step in for a second as one of the authors of the legislation that Lauren is presenting on? I want to answer the question that was asked.
yeah, sure.
Okay.
Actually,
Thank you.
Yes,
So the
okay.
question was, is there legislation on the state side that required the counties to do this? The answer is yes. Last year, 2003 state legislative session, Act 39 was passed, requiring that the counties adopt an ordinance where we allow for at least 2 accessory dwelling units in residentially zoned areas in urban areas. We cannot be more restrictive than the state law. There is a huge fight from Honolulu about not wanting this legislation. But when you think about Big Island, there is tremendous opportunity for Ohana to build on their property if they get space and if there is infrastructure available, the water and the sewer. We took it a step further as a council and said, you know what? There's plenty space. If you can max 3 on your property, right? 3 units that are an accessory to your primary home, we want to give people that ability to be able to do that. And when we were crunching numbers about what it would actually cost to do this, you know, 1,250 square feet, you're looking at a pretty penny. This is not something really cheap for folks to do, but we recognize that families are big here in Hawaii, single families. And so we wanted folks to have the ability to build up to 1,250 square feet, because sometimes you think that you're going to level up in life and get a bigger accommodation, but sometimes this is going to be your forever home. So we just wanted to make sure that we were recognizing that reality that this may be the Ohana's forever home. We went a step further than the state and we said you can build 3. But what we are, what I've seen on the council is a lot of folks are concerned about traffic and all that stuff. So there have been times where individuals have introduced, as Norrin said, amendments to change of zone applications that would limit the ability for somebody to build an ADU on their property. I'm vehemently against any of those amendments because they go against what law we just introduced and adopted as a council. I think if the infrastructure supports it and the ohana of that property have the means and the ability to build, they should be able to build. But it really comes down to 1, the space, and 2, is there enough infrastructure to be able to support it? We want to prevent more urban sprawl. And we want to make sure that we are able to build in communities where we have the infrastructure to sustain the growing population. Hawaii County was actually the first county across the state to move forward and adopt this legislation. Counties needed to do this by 2026, so we're way ahead of the curve. And one of the pieces of legislation that's floating around right now this session is the ability to build ADUs on agricultural property. As Norrin mentioned earlier, if you're going to build an ADU, it's not called an ADU, it's an accessory farm dwelling. And you have to prove that you have agricultural activities occurring on your site in order for planning to sign off on allowing you to build. The legislation that's going through session right now would actually allow for the building of accessory dwelling units, so long as it's for like an affordable price point or workforce housing. And it has to be for that in order to be on agriculturally zoned lands.
And are we talking about HPP, Orchid Land? Those
The
larger,
legislation I just described would certainly apply to the communities that you just mentioned. But I want to just say that legislation is being considered right now. It's not law. It's
okay,
being
so right now, HPP and Orchid Land are not allowed to have these ADUs.
You can have an accessory farm dwelling. You have to prove that you are doing agricultural activities. So they're not ADUs, they're accessory farm dwellings.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
You're welcome.
Okay, so, I'll finish up. Okay, so, we can go to the next slide. So, please read the ordinance itself. I just hit the highlights. These are the questions we get most often over the counter. But I mean, it's fairly informative, right? I mean, these are the particular pinch points that a lot of people run across. So you can read either the bill or you can refer to the Hawaii County Code. It's actually in our code right now, chapter 25, section 6, subsection 30. So you can read it there, or just pick up a copy of the bill. For specific information on particular situations, you can contact the planning department. You can email us, send us an inquiry, and then we'll get back to you as quick as we can. And, or you can, I actually put my cell phone number on here. That's not my office number, but anyways, just
Everybody's calling you.
just email. Hi. So anyways, but let me go to the next slide, just one after the thank you. Okay. In case you're wondering about the state land use district for the entire district of Puna, everything in blue is conservation. Everything in green is ag. Everything in pink is urban. And you can't even see the rural. She will try and point at it, but you can barely see it.
Yeah.
And that's yellow. So and if you go to the next slide, this is our zoning. Everything in green is ag of one type or another. Ag 20, ag 5, ag 1, RA, yep. Everything in white is forest reserve. So there aren't like a lot, so the overlap of the pink and the green is very, very limited. In fact, in KL, there is that one particular patch right across the highway, but outside of that, it diminishes substantially. So it's not widespread. So and like Ashley had pointed out, there's legislation being introduced at the legislature all the time to take a look at maybe expanding that, but until it becomes law and until we have an ordinance that changes that, then right now, a lot of this land is not actually, ADUs are not available to them.
Ainaloa subdivision recently had a rezoning situation, didn't they? 2 or 3 years ago? No?
I am not exactly sure.
Oh, okay.
Actually, rezones and special permits and applications like that actually go to a partner division within the planning department. So I actually don't process that,
Okay.
but Ainaloa,
The yellow there, is that not Ainaloa?
It seems like it's the Homelands area, like by Coop Market,
Ainaloa.
because I know Loa is the super dense green strip that continues from HPP. I think Orchid Lane gets blue.
Oh, okay.
What does blue signify?
Can't touch it.
No, this is county zoning. I think that's Ag 3. I don't know why it's
That is
blue.
accurate. That's Hawaiian acres.
And then-
acres, all the way up.
Yeah, a huge amount of Puna is ag. And so, yeah, blue is Ag 3. And then, but then try to go back to the state land use.
That's urban.
So Volcano Village, certain portions of Mountain View and Cowtown, the whole, of course. I don't know how this happened in Kalapana. It's probably remnant from, before. But this is the state land use, so the opportunities for that isn't widespread in Puna district.
Is there a certain district that is?
Well, Hilo's directly to the north of it, and Hilo has a substantial amount of urban designated state land use land, Kailo Kona, of course, but then you also have Waimea, portions of South Kona. Those areas have a lot more urban designated land, yeah.
Would we be able to know if we called the planning department, how many people have applied to do these ADUs?
ADUs, actually, we don't count ADUs right now. Because although planning has the regulatory, legislation for, implementing or telling people where they can put their ADU. We don't actually issue the permit we don't have a permit for the ADU. In fact, the ADU replaced the Ohana permit that we used to issue, so now there is no permit for ADUs. So a person only has to submit a building permit through Public Works, and when it arrives in planning, we check to make sure that ADUs is allowable where there's own district, they have the appropriate zoning, and assuming that it passes either DEM or DOH and water supply, they can build their ADU.
I have a question for Ashley. Can we
Oh.
put the Ashley on the screen?
There she is.
So Ash, is she there? Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just, knowing that our state representatives are not necessarily great at collaboration with our county representatives and the potential bill to allow these ADUs in ag land, not just the farm dwellings. Obviously, and you mentioned that transportation comes to mind very seriously. And so the traffic, yeah, I mean, we already imagine just going out to if we had 3 ADUs on every Paradise Park home or our Puna homes. So I'm just wondering if this is like a good time while this is being considered to use that as, leverage for our state representatives for an alternative route for, in and out of our Pahoa area, since that's been in discussion and consideration and for years. And I'm just wondering, is the state aware of this? Like, are they aware of this consideration of ADUs on properties in ag being considered?
Yeah, I mean, when you say state, it's definitely, members of the State House of Representatives and the State Senate that are advancing the idea of ADUs on agricultural properties, so long as it's affordable housing or workforce housing. I'm gonna be really honest, and I know it's a public meeting, but I feel like it has to be said that the legislature is going to do what they do with or without consultation from the county, usually without consulting the county. They want to feel like they're solving something, but in doing that, they end up creating a whole host of issues that could have been prevented with a bit more collaboration. I don't know if there is an appetite on the state side to actually pass that measure that I was describing, but I had to talk about it because it is floating around. It's still very early in the session to think about what's actually gonna be approved. We'll have a better sense, I want to say mid to late March. But the infrastructure piece is definitely top of mind for me. We have an explosion of growth here in Puna with infrastructure that is either non-existent or just cannot support the existing population, not to mention if folks are able to build ADUs. We need so much more than what is currently there. And who is supposed to front the bill for that, right? Because the subdivisions are private entities with no county presence, right? It's not county roads, so like who would be paying for the wastewater and the water systems? I frankly think in some situations it's good that a lot of us are on catchment and not having to rely on Department of Water Supply, because there have been times where, little bit scary, there is a water shortage, right? And they've had to ask people to conserve water. So if the state is going to be forcing this upon us, I really do hope that they're going to help to pay for the necessary infrastructure that is required to make this a reality. Whether or not they'll consult with us, I don't know. I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
I have a question, and sorry if it's not so you can get up to 3 of the ADUs, and in our case right now, the additional farm dwelling, what was it?
So if you're state land use ag, county zone ag, you have to go through the additional farm dwelling
Farm
process.
dwelling, okay.
Now, if you are able to get ADUs, then you do not need to go through the additional farm dwelling process.
And so keeping in mind those 3 additional, based on whether you have the land and the infrastructure and whatnot, what determines how many people, what are the ratio, what is the ratio? How do you know how many people can live in each dwelling to say, oh, this septic covers these additional?
Well, that's actually a State Department of Health question, because State Department of Health regulates individual private wastewater treatment systems. Now, generally, very, very generally, it's 5 bedrooms per septic system. So they don't really even count dwellings, they count number of bedrooms.
Okay.
And so, let's say you build a 2-bedroom, 3-bath house, right? That HPM 1056, and you put in a septic system for that. The septic system, notionally speaking, if it was sized correctly, would have enough additional capacity for maybe 2 more bedrooms. But 2-bedroom units aren't really a popular construction choice on the island. So that's where the rub comes in, right? If you build a 3-bedroom unit, you're gonna need another septic system, or you're gonna have to upscale your existing system, which means you're gonna have to pull out your septic and put a bigger one in, and we may require more space, more leach field, all of those calculations comes into play. And so, you know, that's the reason why that it's no longer, you know, the legislation or the ability to do it, it's now the infrastructural restrictions.
Are prohibitive.
Yeah, can you get the water and do you have enough space for the sewer? If you don't have county sewer, then you're gonna have to do IDWS or septic system. And if you go that route, then you have to deal with all of those things as well. Yeah.
And Lay, there's going to be very few situations where folks are going to be able to max out at the 3 because of infrastructure constraints, but just also the cost and time involved to be building in today's environment. But as we were putting forward this bill, we thought, you know what, let's maximize options for those that can. But really the telling piece is going to be the infrastructure. So that's where I felt like the safeguard was going to be with the balance of all that, which is why I thought, you know what, let's just go for 3, because if can, let's do it. But in most situations, the carrying capacity is likely going to be maybe 1, 2 at the most. And the state legislation requires at least 2 if there's available infrastructure. Norrin, I know you guys said you guys aren't tracking ADU requests that come in, but it might be interesting to start doing that and talking to folk and just mapping out where those ADUs are being built so we can see who's taking advantage of the opportunity and where on the island.
Yeah.
How that impacts.
Yeah.
That's something we'd have to work with Public Works because it's actually their permit. And so, yeah, luckily we have, everything's comes in electronically now, so hopefully it's a simple thing.
Adding a button that says this is an ADU application, right? They're like, I'm hoping there's something like really simple that we can add to the process. So that, and then I feel like there's got to be some communication with water supply and DEM, because the process in kind of hearing how it all unfolds, it feels very siloed. And I'd like to know when DEM and water supply are giving a thumbs up or thumbs down, just so that we're aware of where they've denied opportunities in various communities because no can. I think it's important to map that.
Yeah, well, I mean, DEM manages the wastewater treatment plants, right? So
yeah,
maybe,
Department of Health, whatever, you know what I mean. But I think it's for us to know where they're saying okay to build, where there's capacity to do more, and where they have denied people because they just can't service anymore. We need to figure out keeping track of that data, so like folks understand why people are able to build in certain areas.
Sure, yeah, that's something we can talk about and we can investigate for sure.
I think that's getting ahead of the fall to get that data would be important.
Yeah, well.
I know it might be difficult, but.
What Ashley was trying to say was like, we need to put the mechanism in place.
That's right.
And that's the
thing,
yeah. And that's what we need to talk about with all our partner agencies, right? I mean, when you pull your building permit, yeah, it goes from building and then planning. But in some cases it goes to fire, it goes to State Department of Health, and it goes to engineering and other partner agencies. And so we need to talk to all those other partner agencies. It's not just planning.
So would it then become something that you would put at the first initiation point of contact so that everybody thereafter who comes in contact with that application, then they would just know already?
Let them work out these details.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I wish I could give you that, but yeah, that's a little bit beyond me right now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Someone mentioned like an alternate route earlier, and if there was going to be a funding consideration for that, if the state passes the law to allow for ADUs on ag. I'm going to go off on that tangent and just say that we have a presentation by HDOT and DPW next week, Thursday, at County Council. I believe it's at 11:30, 9:30 or 11:30. I'll send the details to Cavello so she can circulate. But there is going to be discussion about movement on that project.
Mahalo. Okay. Mahalo nui for that information. And oh, Leila, you have a question?
I do. Thank you very much for sharing. I'm just wondering, because I'm on the I go on to the county's website, real property tax, TMKs, right? Like, how do you find the land use for the county?
Just search for it.
Actually, no, I think I found the county ones, but like the state land use ones, it goes to the land use commission page and like, I'm trying to figure out how to find the state land use ones.
Actually, what you could do is, can you bring up the planning department website?
Yeah, I can do it. If you let me share screen, I can do that.
Just so people are like wondering too, like, I think it's good to have that information, like, what do you call, where you can access these maps?
So over here, this is the county department website, right?
Yeah.
So then you can go over here, if you scroll down, these tiles at the bottom. We could go over here, GIS maps. And then you'll see GIS public data over here. And then that'll open up to a public version of our data. The disclaimer, and then you click over here. There's the layers, and you make it drop down. And if you scroll down, you'll see all kinds of roads, special management area, and then you'll see over here state land use. You want to check that so it turns on the layer. And then you're gonna see it light up the whole county. And then you'll see down below, there's also the layer for zoning. And I turned it on and you don't see anything, but that's because these layers as they're listed is also how the layers are like physically showing on there. So if I turn off state land use, oh, it's gonna be terrible, actually.
You got to download the thing.
Yeah, so let me click back and zoom in, before.
It's still thinking.
Thank you. I can check it because I was going to the wrong spot.
Yeah,
I figured out the county one, but I couldn't figure out the state one. It was taking me to the land use commission.
oh,
Thank you.
So, and just a short announcement, given the relevance of transportation concerns to this, there is a hearing on Thursday, March 6th at 10:30 with the county council with an update for the Puna alternative route, if anybody's interested in attending.
What time is that?
10:30 in the morning.
So I just,
Mahalo, I shaped it out.
What was the date again?
Thursday, March 6th.
I've asked Director Ed Sniffen from HDOT and Public Works Director Hugh Ono to give us an update on the study. More funding is going to be coming through from the state. We really don't need testimony. Like, they all know that we need this route. And I just want them to have as much time as possible to make a presentation and get questions from the council answered. So just so everybody's aware and can tune into the update.
Mahalo nui. So I can,
Okay.
oh, Kevin, you had a question or no? Sorry.
No, I was
Am I-
just wondering the date, and I'm happy to hear that they don't need me to talk anymore.
So we're looking for a motion to approve this, what is?
We don't need a motion to approve it. What it is,
Sorry.
This is, so this is mostly information, but I left it open in case out of this conversation, there was items that you guys wanted to make decision making, have decision making on, so something came up, you wanna write a letter to this and that.
Okay.
But if not, we can just, you can just, move forward to the next item. And everything is-
Oh, Leila has a question.
Yep.
Aloha, Leila.
Hi, Aloha, sorry, so just bringing back up, like, in reference to the conversation we've had, like, over the last 6 months, that Matt addressed the last, meeting that we had and what Ashley brought up today as well, too, as far as the carrying capacity of our community here in Puna. And I really want us to figure out, like, whether it's a permitted interaction group that really addresses this issue, because we've had meetings with state transportation, we've had meetings with Joanne Greger and, the mayor and all that stuff about addressing these issues with our infrastructure in Puna. And it's something critical. And if we're adding more to our plate here, per parcel, per site, building site, whatever it is, then we need to figure something out. So I'd like to just request if we can do that.
On the
'Cause-
next agenda.
Yeah,
Well, so if we frame it in the sense of, because of this conversation with ordinance 2470, then you guys are discussing the current, legislative session and a bill that's happening that's relevant and related. Then I think it's related to this agenda item, and then you can make, I think you can make the motion to make the permitted interaction group.
Could I just ask Ashley first, is there any action you would like to see coming from this item on our behalf? And
I mean, but with the ordinance that we adopted, right, through Bill 123 to create the ability to build more ADUs on Hawaii Island, there's really not much to do because it applies to residential zone areas, state land use urban, which is really not impacting Puna right now. What I would suggest is a permitted interaction group is a good idea, to study and track the legislation for building more units on ag zone land. There should be a group of people that are tracking it and in conversations with our state delegation on that issue. So you can convey any concerns you might have about the impact it would have on Big Island, both positive and negative, right? Like, we know we need more housing. It's like ridiculous to build, but like, can we please build in a smart and informed and responsible way, recognizing what the carrying capacity of our natural resources are? And so if we're gonna build, like, let's make sure there's enough jobs and everything to just handle all of these new housing units. So I would suggest a PIG to monitor current legislation and to interface with state delegation.
okay.
Okay, mahalo. So, so Leila, would you like to, yeah, would
I
you like to? make
Find the right people to do this for sure. Yes, I would. I mean, literally, I've been talking about this for a long time, and I mean, we're all so overwhelmed, and we need support in doing these things for sure. So yeah, anybody want to help do this? Because what do you call it? It's larger than that because we've already surpassed the carrying capacity, right? And anything that's coming through legislation right now is going to affect it even more. We need to figure out what's going on and what's happening and how to address this issue. Because I literally have meltdowns when I go to Hilo and have to go through the traffic. I'm not the only one.
I'm there with you.
In our roads in Pahoa. If you leave after 7:40 in the morning from the homesteads and trying to get into Pahoa, it takes you 10 minutes from the homesteads to Pahoa roundabout. And I mean, traffic is just nuts. And we've surpassed the carrying capacity. And I'm so sorry to bring this back up again, but I really feel like it's larger and part of that can be this hold on, honey. Tracking legislation, but also looking at what are we doing about the surpassed carrying capacity that that's existing. I don't know
So
what
would
to
you,
do.
so would you like to make a motion on this item to create a permitted interaction group?
Can I ask about this idea to track? I mean, the legislation that's going to be introduced this session has already been introduced. Are we talking about this for next year? Or is there legislation that needs to be looked at right now? And I mean, I'm asking Ashley, maybe if you know, is there legislation right now that we should
Yes.
be? Okay.
The bill that I described about, you know, having housing on ag specifically for affordable housing and workforce housing, that is a measure that's currently being contemplated this session.
Is
But
it?
it's moved through committees.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, is it hitting crossover? Do you know? I mean,
I
I'm okay. I
I don't,
can.
yeah,
I'm
and
tracking. I'm good at tracking.
yeah, plus like permitted interaction groups are a lot of work, and I honestly don't know if you guys can do that without it being agendized. Like as the council, I have to agendize anytime I want to create a pig. So I mean, at this point, it might be good for a couple people to monitor what's going on and report back to the group, and then just maybe keep this on each of your agendas going forward. But everybody should feel empowered to submit testimony. At the state ledge, it's a numbers game. It's not enough for one member of the AC to submit testimony and say, I represent all these people. Everybody got to do it because they physically count the testimony.
Do you know the number for that bill, Ashley, or can you get it to us later?
Yes, I will look for it and get it to you folks.
Thank you.
Okay, Colin, we'll finish up with Leila and then I would like to reopen up testimony for this agenda item, so I'll take that back to you, Leila, if you're interested or.
I don't think then right now at this moment, like, what do you call it? Because I just have to gauge the interest of our action committee members and like, what do you call it? Maybe I can meet with Clavel them again and talk about this further.
And it's something that, it doesn't need to be a permitted interaction group, because that actually is a lot restrictive. If there's just one or two of you guys working on this, then it could be providing those routine updates, and there are a lot more flexibility and movement on this. Especially if we're talking about tracking a state bill like that, we need to be able to be a little bit more flexible.
So thank you, Franny, for offering to track that, and if we could take Ashley's advice and keep this on as a current agenda item.
And then at this time, I would like to.
If I'm tracking that bill, can I email to everybody, or should I email to you guys, then you guys email everybody? Because if
Yeah,
there's
you gotta-
testimony, it's usually
You
very
gotta
fast.
email it to us. You gotta email it to us, yeah. I
Yeah,
think that the part I would say.
because you usually get about 48 hours and it's like boom, boom with the testimony. So yeah.
What we've done traditionally, what we've done the few times ACs have wanted to give testimony at the legislative sessions is that we have an agenda item where they draft a letter. Obviously rooted in the CDP document as the rationale of what the testimony is about. And then that letter, the vote is given in a sense that it's like and is worded in a general sense that allows planning staff to essentially have that letter voted on, approved, and sent to every committee as it's being tracked. So we don't have to come back to the AC to revote or anything like that. It's just a one stop letter that's ready to go. And if there's new things that come up, then we can revote and change and make amendments to the letter. But it's kind of ready and set like that. And then planning staff will just go through the effort of submitting it on your guys' behalf. As it goes through the different committees.
But we don't have time for that this session, because we'd have to put that as an agenda item on the next CDP. The whole thing's going to be over by the time we meet again.
Right, especially since we're every other month.
Yeah.
Unless you guys were to come up with a letter right now, but I don't think that's really good. Likely.
Okay,
Yeah.
Good
Are
to
we
know
ma-
for next year though, too, if we want to think about, how we're planning out next year, that we would want to be talking in January about because we would want to do it in January.
At this point, it would be more like tracking the bill, and then planning can share the updates to the bill, and then you guys can provide your own personal public testimony on your,
Okay.
okay,
So I can share the update with you guys, and you guys will send it fast to all the CDP members.
We're gonna keep it as a business item, yeah, that would be the way to go.
Okay. Okay.
Franny,
Okay.
thank you
Okay,
I'm
more
tracking so much legislation. I'm gonna add one more. It's not a problem.
Okay, mahalo everybody for that. I would like to go ahead and reopen the floor to our community members if you'd like to address this item. Somebody, I seen some hands up.
Patty, you had your hand up?
I just wanted to mention that there are other state legislation issues that have, impact community development, and I think we should look at it more broadly than just the ag ADU.
Mahalo. If that's all for that item, I'd like to move on. Yeah, okay, the time now is 6:02 PM. And the committee will now move on to business item number 2. Orchid Land Estates Infrastructure Letter. Discussion and decision-making on submitting drafted communication number 2025-01 to relevant agencies. And I believe that went out with the information packet, so everybody, I hope had a chance to review. No, is there anybody who would like to provide testimony on this item at this time? Okay, we'd like to have you come up and then please share your name. Oh, and I think there's a chair here. Yes. Mahalo nui.
Thank you.
Okay,
Sorry. My name is Virginia Jenny
I'm gonna
Ace.
pull up the letter and put it on the.
mahalo.
I think I've seen and I've been here before. Representing myself, but who I was a co-author of the Puna Community Development Plan with Bonnie Goodell so many years ago. And I do have some information about tracking the amount of infrastructure and how you measure impact of what's going to come up when people suggest increasing housing in an area where there is very little or no infrastructure.
Sorry, Ginny, just really quickly, can the members on Zoom hear what she's saying? I'm wondering if I should direct a microphone. And just,
I can hear her.
Is that better? Can you
Oh,
get
can
better
you
now?
Turn off this one.
It was fine.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
Mahalo.
I as a result of my work on the Puna Community Development Plan, I became interested in the community of Orchid Land. Orchid Land has zero infrastructure, even though it has a thriving business center. The business center was put almost at the intersection, the church, the store there, and a couple of restaurants and some other stuff, the gas station. So it has become a catchment area. Our food bank serves 340 families. That's about 1,200 people. And we don't have a solid place. We are at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints at the moment. But my object was to help get a 4-acre parcel up on 36th, which would become a multi-purpose community center in order to serve the community and provide a place for the kinds of programs and services that people expect and that are funded by the county, but which we cannot take advantage of because there is no place to hold them. And part of the lack there, although we are planning and have our special permit, is to do the multi-purpose center on catchment. I understand that when Hawaiian Acres started out, they were on catchment. And now they're planning a new big development, and I don't know if they'll be on catchment or if they are actually planning to get some kind of a water system up there. But my point is, water is becoming a real impediment to the Puna Community Development Plan because there is no water infrastructure. So this has been, aside from fire emergency, that whole thing, But, so we need that. And I think that this committee has an option to go to the new administration and make them aware again of the need for a water line in Orchid Land. That's all I can say. You can read the letter that we'd like you to send. And I speak in favor of that. Thank you.
Well, hallelujah for that.
Ready? No questions, I think.
Do you foresee the line only as going up Orchid Land Drive? Your letter mentioned going up to 40th Avenue. It's kind of hard to push water up the hill.
I'm really aware of that. I've gone over, I don't know what the answers are. I just know that we need water in order to provide infrastructure for the community where the lots are. So I don't know exactly. I'm not, but at least look at it, begin to look at it and plan for it and figure out how you pump the water uphill. I really hear you because I've gone through that. And there was and Rosette's Nursery is a case in point. They drilled a well. So I drilled a well there. But it was because it was down, water off of was close.
Okay.
So I was able to do that. It was still highly expensive. It was 20 years ago, but it still costs an enormous amount of money for that time. So we need to look at it. At the moment, we would be limited by catchment. If that's what it is, we have space, I think, for 4 or 6 catchment pads on our special permit, showing the locations. It doesn't mean they'll always be full.
Yeah, and you mentioned the school or the grocery store on 35th can't be built because there's nothing going there.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you that you read the letter.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah. Okay. I think we just all have to be working together to keep pushing for infrastructure, and I'm here just to say that we need to approach the new administration. Make them aware. There are some new names on there, some names that I remember from 20 years ago that are on Alameda's in his cabinet. It's like, oh. So, but they all, yeah.
Okay.
Did you want to testify?
Just a comment, do I have to fill it out if it's just for a comment? No. When we talk about water.
Thank you
talking
for
about
that.
How to get water to use. I remember back in the day when James and Elizabeth Weatherford, tried to get a gray water system. It was nuts, it was crazy, and they put the first one in down there. But maybe if the county can somehow network with the Department of Health, Environmental Health, to make them aware that the big island out here in Puna, it's not Oahu, and that we can use gray water systems to recycle some of the water. Perhaps not in a situation like this public facility, but in other things. Just something to consider.
I'm sorry. Oh,
I wanted to testify on this one.
okay.
Okay, cool.
Please introduce yourself.
How's it? My name is Brennan Lau. I live on Orchid Land Drive, and so I was keenly interested in the prospect of water infrastructure there. I love all the whereases in this proposed letter. I think if we add on perhaps a couple of therefores, maybe we can push the ball in the right direction. What I'd suggest is that we look at where the water already flows and consider a horizontal water line going along 40th Avenue. The county loves to drive down 40th Avenue with their buses. As soon as it got paved, they're like, yeah, we're on that. And 40th Avenue, it continues actually all the way to Highway 11. So I didn't know this until they mentioned it at an Orchid Land meeting recently, but the right of way continues to the highway from 40th. And I know right now they're doing work on a law, so that'd be an easy time to put a water line in is when they're already working on the really close road. But to the extent that Matt's new bill allows investment of public funds into private infrastructure or into private subdivisions, so long as they remain open to the public. It's cool, it's legit for the county to invest money that they might even get from the state into improving infrastructure in Orchid Land. They are going to want to get something out of it. And I think, you know, having a community park available, having, you know, the ability for a school or a laundromat, great suggestion to get built in the neighborhood, is a huge win if you give them a how. Like, there's big tanks on Highway 11. Water runs downhill really easy. Water runs sideways on a hill also pretty easily. So what I'd suggest is that we maybe tack on a paragraph about the willingness of Orchid Land, the subdivision, to allow public infrastructure to be put on our private property in exchange for maybe some road improvements on 40th to go with the water line. And that's gonna unlock those other potentials lower down 40th Avenue, or sorry, yeah, lower down Orchid Land Drive. If I still have any time on my 3 minutes for this, for the general area, Orchid Land is a connector subdivision. We don't have any public infrastructure. We do pay those public fees, taxes, road, gas fees, etc. But one day, the state may realize that more than one lane is necessary to go all the way out to Ainaloa or Pahoa, because people like to travel on the roads and not sit in a parking lot. And they're going to be either cutting through Hawaiian Paradise Park when that construction happens, or they're going to be cutting through Orchid Land. Orchid Land is not yet developed. We have several streets that connect all the way from paved, county buses love it, Pohaku, all the way over to paved, county buses love it, Ainaloa, but in between, it's just like this vast desert. And so what I propose is maybe, you know, 36 is a good street to have a cross running. And so maybe if the county's gonna get serious about Puna infrastructure, then they're probably gonna come through Orchid Land in some way. And if they're coming in off the highway on 40th or Ola'a, it's just as easy to go down Pohaku as it is to go down Orchid Land. Probably a lot easier because they don't have to, you know, deal with the roads in between. But anyway, the trade-off we can make is for, you know, those 2 or 3 uncomfortable years when construction is happening on Highway 130 and it's just suck all the time. You know, you can cut up to 35th or you can cut up to 36th and drive on that newly paved road that the county or the county or state funds pitched in on to cover the water lines going with it. And that allows, you know, the school, the laundromat or whatever. So granted, you know, I'm expanding the ask, so they invest a little bit more money, but I think by providing the feasibility and the benefits, you know, here's why you want to pave our road and give us a water line.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's it.
I have a question.
Sure.
So you mentioned on 40th, I mean, you say that the people that own property on 40th will benefit from a water line,
We might
but
build.
can you speak for them though?
Uh,
That's the question. I
I
know.
cannot, I own 2 small lots on 40th, and so I'm actually a little afraid that if this water line goes through, I'm gonna end up, you know, with a $60,000 bill for my 2 adjacent half acre lots, while my neighbor next door with 3 acres maybe gets a $30,000 bill. Anyway, I've heard that happens. Sometimes they're like, here's a new water line, here's your bill. And so I would hope that any improvements like that, you know, the consideration is given to like, here's your 10-year payment plan for your fancy new infrastructure, not just here's your bill.
Well, what my question is, have you brought this up to the Orchid Land subdivision?
Oh, I tell them, but they're broke. They don't have any, I mean, well, actually, that's how the conversation about 40th going all the way to the highway came up. So I mentioned Matt's, I mean, he wasn't the only one that did it. The county council passed something, Tim and maybe Ashley helped as well. They passed something to use public money on publicly accessible private roads. And so when I mentioned that at the council, they were like, oh, 40th goes all the way. And so to me, that just makes tons of sense, is, you know, build your water line. There's probably one running right down the side of Highway 11 already. And so they don't need a new well. They don't need a new tank to store it.
I'm sure you're in supporting it, but that's a controversial thing in that subdivision, for sure. You know, you might have to have a survey and get a majority of people on 40th to agree to support that plan.
Yeah, I don't, I would imagine it's probably easier if your road's not already paved. And if the county wants to improve Pohaku, or if they want to improve 40th from Pohaku to Highway 11, that's already got the traffic bump. So the infrastructure there would have no impact. And you could argue that the infrastructure on only Orchid land, not connecting to Highway 11 via 40th, would have less impact because it's a paved road and people aren't gonna notice if, you know, the increased traffic on an already paved road because there's, you know, I think both and is the right answer.
Yeah.
It's just how you pay for it.
Definitely, we want more infrastructure. We'd love to have the paved roads, the water. I just know that you have to also talk to your neighborhood and make sure that you
Sure.
have a large number of people that would support it.
I bet you there were people in Hawaiian Acres who hated Moho getting paved and probably are still a little ticked off.
So that's why I'm bringing that up.
Something that happened to us, yeah.
Yes, yeah, I mean, because
Yeah.
okay, so I'm just speaking as one individual. I encourage all of my neighbors to come and share their views as well, but I mean, I
Thank you,
applaud.
thank you. And I like the idea, and I don't know how it can be incorporated in this letter. This is kind of a general letter,
Okay,
just to say, we need water. You know,
okay,
we're just like crying out for,
where they have it
water-
is Highway 11. I mean, it may be way easier to bring it in Highway 11.
okay,
And so
I
just,
hear you.
I'd
But
encourage you to.
but see,
to
that's the water
look
supply
parallel as well as.
to discuss. I'm not a infrastructure expert or know where water lines are and those like, we're just bringing up to whoever will listen.
Mhm.
I mean, right now, we're in a drought. It's really serious right now, so I hear the water trucks are flying around and there's not enough spigots to service all the need. So I'm saying we need a spigot in
Well,
Orchid
isn't there
Land.
one right at the start of Orchid Land? Like, or maybe it's technically HPP, but when you're, when you're coming up to
Nothing.
Oahu on the Mauka side of the highway.
Well, that's just some spigots. We're talking about a water truck location where they can load up the water in the water tanks to deliver
Okay,
to.
well, I'm saying if there's already water there, like at the
Oh,
highway,
true, true.
then you pretty much go straight across, and run on the, 34th, the top street of HPP, and you could get pretty close to the area you want to bring water to. I
Please
mean,
talk to the water department.
okay, yeah, I mean, if 40th is involved, which was mentioned specifically in the letter, I think you should look at coming in from 40th. If the goal is to get water to 36th and 35th, it probably is easier to go off of Highway 130. Yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Well, what I wanted to, I was instrumental in writing this letter with the help of others that support this plan. And I'm making a motion that the letter would be accepted by our committee and that we would forward it to the planning department as an official letter from our committee. Maybe we should also consider forwarding it to the mayor's office, the water department, the planning, the building department. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a comment. Oh, come on. Aloha, I have a comment. Mahalo for this letter. I was wondering if it's possible to, in certain areas, and I don't have specifics, sorry, if we can somehow tie it to where it's relevant in the CDP, you know how that, and then that would give it a little bit extra more weight as far as why it's important. If maybe a little revision could be made to say, oh, this directly is in correlation with our plan, and that's why it's important to.
Well, if you notice in paragraph 2, it details about the village centers.
Right.
So isn't that sufficient to meet our standard of meeting it in that pocket of Puna?
Maybe just the
The lower part, the one that's on 35th, and it hasn't been built. I thought it was supposed to be built as a school 10 years ago. But my understanding is the county wouldn't approve it because of infrastructure. Either not water or not an intersection.
I just meant like if you could point to the number in the section kind of thing. Just, I know it's a small, tiny thing, but at least it would give them a little bit more clear correlation. Because it's all it's all relevant to the plan. I just
Okay.
was wondering if maybe a small edit could be made.
Okay, could we pass a motion with that revision added as soon as possible?
Do we have?
And I could forward it to prove that I did add that to the letter.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor, if there's a second. Or,
Maybe the motion could be for amendments and then we could just, everybody can chime off any other amendments to add on. For all of those sections.
okay, so the motion is to accept this letter with revisions and then,
Motion to review this letter as a committee
Okay.
and make revisions.
as soon as possible, okay, so,
Well, my motion was that I would ask the committee to accept this letter, and I would also agree to the revision as far as adding a specific number in the Puna development plan on that paragraph 2, or where it's appropriate, maybe I'll mention it more than once. And we move forward because we only meet every other month. So it's kind of, we need to get moving.
so we have a second?
Can the revisions be approved? Is there the availability to approve online for a vote? The revisions, or it has to be approved here?
It has to be approved today.
So maybe then,
It would be, yeah, for the most part, and the revisions don't have to be word for word, paragraph, but the general intention has to be voted on today, what the types of revisions to be done.
so it's just a matter of finding the correlating numbers and then
Right,
plugging them in.
right.
That shouldn't-
Staff could help with
That shouldn't be an issue,
Right.
okay.
There's a really good place for it, where it says, make the village center a reality for the residents of Orchid Land Estates. If you wanna make it about Puna and the Puna CDP, the village center is serving Iowa, it's serving HPP. So that's where you can put your number in verse.
But this letter's about water, request for water line. I mean, that can be added, but I
Well, the
think
village center might function better with water. I think that was part of that point.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure how.
I think adding that rationale is important. I think the verbiage is there, and I'm sure there's other things throughout the CDP document that you could throw in
Right.
as rationale. I think, adding a page number or policy number, that's helpful.
Yeah, and then the paragraph 4. This could have, yeah, I'm reading from the letter, this could have been the major start of the village center concept. So again, I could put it there in 2 locations. Okay. Yeah, I would hope that our committee would let this go forward.
So then do we, like to take a vote on all the? Oh, I'm sorry, we still need a second. If anybody,
Dana's raising her hand.
Oh. Leila, your second?
I want to discuss this further. So what do you call it? How do we, what's the motion at the table right now? Because someone suggested a different one and she has a different one. What is the motion on the table?
We'll go with you, just go
Okay.
ahead and state your.
That this letter will go forward as written, but in paragraph 2 and paragraph 4, I will add the specific Puna development plan. I'm really not that familiar with how the plan is set up. The paragraph numbers about the village center it's addressed in the Puna development plan. So I will refer to the Puna development plan to make it clear how this letter is a support of the Puna development plan.
So the motion is that you'd like us to approve the letter at this given time.
Yes.
And does someone second the motion?
Not yet. So we will open it up to discussion, or do we have to have the second first? Oh, sorry, we need to have the second first.
I mean, I would like to second it. So because I know this has been a long time standing conversation that's been happening for a few years now. But I do want to ask a few questions about this. So I will second her nomination to, what do you call it? Whether with, is this with amendments?
Correct.
With those added,
Section.
section numbers from the Puna Development Plan.
So that's the first suggestion though.
Correct,
Yeah. And if we're gonna, now we can open it up for discussion.
correct.
Okay, so first of all, it would be really helpful if you put the TMK number in here. There's nowhere that identifies the actual piece of property that you're referring to, the 4-acre parcel. Because isn't that what you're referring to is bringing this water up into this particular 4-acre parcel?
Not at this time. It's a more general letter of the need for water on Orchid Land Drive.
Do you know how many people are in the neighborhood there? Do you guys have an estimate of numbers? Because when I look in the Puna Community Development Plan under village centers, and it's under section 5.2, under the smallest service population is 3,000 to 6,000 residents. Do you folks have a number of how many residents are within that subdivision or that area?
When we did the special permit, we notified under 20. About 20 people were notified as neighbors of the.
No,
but do we
Jenny,
know
no,
the-
you misunderstand her.
I'm
Okay,
sorry.
in
I'm
Orchid
sorry.
Land subdivision, my understanding, there are 2,700 parcels, TMK numbers. And as you can imagine, that area would also serve, Paradise Drive out of Paradise Park, Kaloli, and those upper roads in Paradise Park. So easily, we would reach 5,000 residents.
I'm going back to read better and what do you call it? Yeah, and I think it's really important too when you're sharing about village centers that like sharing that in section 5.2, you know, this specific place that talks about it.
I may additionally, when connectivity finally gets put in, there's going to be that draw from Hawaiian Acres as well, which is going to be significant.
Were you able to hear that piece, Layla?
I heard part of it.
It's additional people when considering, you said Hawaiian Acres, connectivity with Hawaiian Acres
There's Tiki Gardens as well.
and Tiki Gardens.
Not at this time.
Thank you. Was there more discussion or questions, Layla?
I'm going back and rereading this like again.
Okay, does anybody else have some in the meantime?
I'd just like to say, I like the idea of having the planning department assist with the alignment of this letter with the Puna CDP, so it doesn't fall directly on your shoulders. I would take advantage of the resource and their expertise.
Yeah, just as a general procedure, then Martin will work with you to finalize this letter once it's voted on, and then we'll put it on a cover letter. I'll put a cover letter on it, and then we'll draft that up with Puna AC letterhead, and we'll send it to chair for signature, and then from there, we'll send it out to all the agencies or people that you guys list out to signature.
And that's, once we have agreed upon sending it out with that.
After you guys have voted.
Okay.
That would be the procedure.
Thank you. That gives me great confidence to have your support. Yeah, this
Yes.
finalizing the letter.
Yeah.
Mahalo. So I don't believe we have to worry too much about the alignment issues with the letter, given we understand the support from the planning department.
Is that, you have any other manao, Leila?
Yeah, could you scroll back up to the top of the letter on your folks' screen that you're sharing? Because the way when I go back and read this, I feel like the very first sentence should be like, we are seeking your support for the infrastructure of water into this area. Like it should be clearly stated what you're seeking. Because I don't see it specifically until the third paragraph, last line. Like you're talking about everything within paragraphs 1, 2, and 3 about the need for what you're looking for, but it doesn't happen until the third paragraph, last time, a water line on Orchid Line Drive would make this project possible. So if the specific intent is to ask for the action committee to support your letter to the county seeking a water line for Orchid Land Drive, it should be specifically stated in the very first paragraph within the first sentence or two. Because I get lost in reading when I go through it. Of like, I see all the stuff that's happening, but like it does, like I'm sharing, is it just me or is that what is,
I would concur with you. There's a lot of ramble.
Maybe a little more.
yeah, you're getting
Would-
background to like what you're getting to the point of where it's basically like it should just say in the very beginning, like the Orchid Land subdivision is seeking support to put a water line in to support our infrastructure. And then you go into the details of why this is needed and stating within there, like putting in those sections. And there's probably other sections in the action committee, the PCDP that can support this as well, if you read through it and like pick those points out. But stating but I feel like you need to make that very clear in the beginning of the this communication.
So would you be comfortable allowing our support from the planning department to make an adjustment such as that, and then we would be able to vote on that and move it forward?
Are you asking me that?
Yeah. I mean, we would have to vote on this we would have to approve it tonight for it to move
Yes.
forward, correct?
Okay, yeah, because in the last paragraph as well too, you go back into like, so you're urging the planning board to support the funding of a water line. Like, and so the word funding wasn't even in there until the very last paragraph. So with amendments and sharing that, what do you call it? That what you're seeking is in the very beginning of the letter. Yes. And adding in those sections from the PCDP in there that reference the village center.
Okay, thank you, Leila, for that manao, and I'd like to go ahead and call a vote at this time. I just call it. Yeah. Okay. So all of those in favor of approving this letter with amendments, please say aye, or let us know your.
Could we clarify who this letter is going to before we call the vote?
Oh, sorry.
I addressed it to the planning department, but now that I think about it, I should also address it to the mayor's office and county councilman. So
what would be the standard protocol and the recommendation?
Typically, what the ACs do is any relevant agency that would touch a project like this, so water supply, planning, just so they're aware, we decide where those things go. Mayor's office is definitely helpful, considering water supply is kind of semi-autonomous.
Sorry, just clarifying, does DWS actually build new systems, or they just?
It depends.
Okay.
Some, I've seen other ACs also include their council members, just to keep them in the know as it develops, because this probably won't be the only time this issue gets brought up. Yeah, so any other agency that you guys can think of or person of interest, within, and maybe it's a department head, maybe it's a specific section lead within that agency.
wanted to kind of echo what Leila was saying about how we should make the focus really clear on this.
Mhm.
And I think what's gonna make it a CDP thing is if this is about, how do we support the Puna community development plan, these village centers? And this may not be germane to this exactly, but are the size of those village centers set in stone? Because if you've observed the Orchid Land Village Center, it's grown right along the highway, which is not covered in your plan. But regardless, like if you give them a really specific ask and you say, we want water or infrastructure to this village center as, agreed upon or blessed for the past 20 years, then kind of leave it up to them how they do it. Maybe they'll have a different idea rather than telling them, you need exactly this road or exactly this subdivision.
So is the specific intent to take it to this vacant lot, to get it up the Orchid Land Drive to this lot?
No, at this time, I wrote the letter, as I said, in a general sense that we need the water on that road, especially now we need it for water spigots and the water tank trucks to load up water to service the community. And if
Mhm.
these other things take place in, after the water is established, I mean, it might be best to, that's why I mentioned other projects in the letter, that it won't be just a small little water line or a small well, it'll be a very big project.
Okay.
So do we have an agreement of who we're sending the letter to?
That could be a starting point. I mean, I see this letter as we're formally opening the conversation with these departments and getting a response.
Well, I jotted down mayor, council, department of water supply, planning department, although I suggested that at the present time. Department of Public Works. Do we need Hawaii police and fire as well? Well, it has to do with fire, so.
That's true.
Did you get that?
Oh, council,
Oh.
mayor, council, department of water supply, planning department, department of public works, R&D, HPD, and HFD.
If we're making a pitch for infrastructure, I think
Right.
we need a fire station.
Well, that was a big discussion.
Yeah, that's another one. Okay. So we currently have a vote on the floor, correct? And on the table, sorry. Are we comfortable moving forward? Yeah, I'll go ahead and call the vote again for those in favor.
I,
I,
Aye.
Aye. Then, so the motion is unanimous and, thank you very much. At this time, we can move forward to the next item.
We'll get a copy of it. Sorry, we'll get a copy of it before it gets sent out, right?
yes.
All right. Thank you.
And so now the time is 6:40 PM and the committee would now move on to business item 3, the Puna connectivity letter, discussion and decision making on submitting drafted communication number 2025-02 to relevant agencies.
So I'll make a motion to approve the letter. After we second it, we can open it for do we need to have public testimony in this?
Yeah, we have, yeah.
Are you going to just have a discussion about it first, or you? I'd like to hear your discussion before I testify.
Okay,
You might be discussing, like, what my testimony was.
okay,
I
Yeah.
second the motion.
okay. Open, the motion is open for discussion now, if anybody has Mana'o. Leila?
My apologies. Who is this letter from? it doesn't share who this letter is from.
Patty drafted this letter. How did you do it?
Patty, are you the author of the connectivity letter?
Oh, I am.
Okay, there's no,
As it would be from the committee.
okay. Did you want to have, did you want to testify on this letter? We're open for discussion now.
I will respond to it.
Okay. I'd just like to say that I've watched for years as Patty has done amazing work on this issue. And it's a little bit embarrassing that it's, no action is taken, especially with these growing emergencies that seem to occur. I really thank you for drafting this letter, and I personally am in full support of it.
Well, I drafted this letter and I think it covers the history and precisely what our ask is. At the last action committee meeting, we formed a committee. And now I think the mayor's office and Department of Public Works are almost at a place where they can consider hearing our request. So it would have been premature, certainly, to go in before now, but I would like to, this is the body of the text. So if there are edits or anything, bring them forward. And then this would be addressed to the mayor, to Hugh Ono and Neil Azevedo. I think Mariam from planning are two council reps for Puna. As a start, we would like to have a meeting with these people to get this agenda back onto their tables and to let them know that we are really ready to have at least one of these get started. There are 9 proposed from the last study that was with Roy Takamoto's study group, but it is so frustrating. And we have seen what happens every time we change administrations. We have a complete brainwipe. And let's get this show on the road. So my ask is that we accept this letter, that it is signed by the action committee, and that is directed to those people I mentioned.
Patty, I'm wondering if, as in the last letter and Layla's suggestion, when at the end it says, we implore you to study our reports and actively support the work to establish Puna Road connectivity. I wonder if that could be more specific with the ask, and if that could be put upfront and in closing. And if somewhere also there could be a reference to the CDP. I mean, you mentioned it overall, but nothing, not a specific reference to the alignment. But I mean, could you just clarify, because this is really sort of vague, actively support the work to establish our road connectivity. After all these years, can we be more direct with the ask? Fund.
It's funded,
Oh, it's also, have you stated that in here?
yes,
Okay. I
down
missed
towards the
that.
bottom, I think.
I think maybe adding a couple bullet points, like so those top priority connectivity points, is that would be something helpful. So they understand, like, hey, but when we're looking at this, hey, we're talking about, whatever roads they are, because I don't know, I can't remember off the top of my head. Thank you, Patty, for doing this, by the way. Because the only person that you had mentioned that's been here through the administrations is Neil.
Yes,
Like the rest of them are all brand new, boom, coming in from this new administration again. But Neil's the only person that's been through these different administrations. I mean, might as well put Joy and Gregor on there too, because I mean, it doesn't, you sure they're in the, the ledge right now, but what do you call it? They are working on some of the other things in connectivity.
May I just add a point of information? That there is a bill, what is it, Patty, 1244? Currently going through that, Joy is backing, which would take a portion of the excise tax to fund what the county called, 63 or 82 or whatever, where they were gonna offer grants to the subdivisions, and the question was, how would you pay for it? There is right now a thing going through to fund it.
Can our Zoom
And
people
it's
hear
still
this?
alive. It's. So. Yes, include them with the letter and put the ones that are no cost. And the ones that have a cost. I mean, be specific about the prioritization of them. Or they make it clear that they can prioritize in any way they wish, but there are 7 of them or 3 of them that would cost the county absolutely nothing.
Hi, this is Ashley. I don't have the letter in front of me, so I don't know all of the contents, but if Patty has drafted it, I fully endorse what she's putting forward. I do want to confirm that under the Kim administration, right, where that was 2 administrations ago in 2020, the council did adopt an ordinance, a bond ordinance that would fund a connectivity route between Upper and Lower Puna. So definitely mention that if it hasn't been already. I also think it's important to include Councilmember Fresh Onishi in the communication because he and I actually share Hawaiian Paradise Park. So there's now 3 council members that are involved in representing the Puna region. And one thing that I think would be important to include is maybe asking the administration to come to the action committee on a quarterly basis and provide an update, put the ball in their court to take action and show back up to our community and provide progress reports.
I would definitely support that.
And you know, one thing that I shared with Director Ono, and he's in full agreement because he's, you know, come from the private sector and understands that, you know, there's a lot of changeover that happens within the county, especially if there's a new administration. We are lacking a list of all the different projects that we are doing and the ones that we need to be doing. And so when there was a transition from Roth to Alameda, there were like the new administration really had no idea what was going on because there wasn't this like public facing repository of information that tells anybody at any time the status of projects and what things are waiting on the back burner, like this connectivity project. So I also think that if you can, you know, push for them to have that information available, it makes tracking the progress of projects really easy for not just the administration, but also for the public. We want to know where things stand at any point in time. So those are the suggestions that I have for the letter.
Mahalo, Ashley.
So then,
I think there's 2 things here. One, the letter can go out more broadly, but we need to have a meeting with the people who really can get this implemented, which I think is the mayor and DPW and our council reps and Mariam.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I know you've been working hard on all of this for a very long time, and my portion has only been a bit of this, but you've definitely I've heard your name a lot and the work that you've been doing. So I'm sorry.
If I can add
Yes.
we've been
Okay.
working on this
Yeah.
for decades together.
Yeah. Please come forward and introduce yourself.
Stephanie Kennison, former CDP steering committee member and lead over transportation during that time. You know, I have to echo what Patty said about being frustrated. The work of the community has been so minimized and written off that it's embarrassing because we come from accounting, we come from a state that prides itself on aloha. And I just want to share, some time ago, I heard somebody speak and they said, act as though the world, your actions are being seen by the world. Now, there was a show on television called 60 Minutes that I understand is still currently broadcasting. Can you imagine if the 60 Minutes network got word of Hawaii paradise and how the communities are in crisis because we don't have infrastructure, and Lahaina burned and Waikoloa got a road, but Burn Acres is not, in the whole history of this project. Can you imagine if one community member submitted this letter? I'm almost certain that the 60 Minutes would jump on it because it's Hawaii. And people watch when anything involves Hawaii. And so I would hope that the administration would take this seriously and take action on it now, because there is discussion of approaching the media on this. There is discussion on approaching the media. I've heard it from a number of people, because we are being so oppressed, and we are low income community, we're a poverty community. Now, I'm one that tries to stay positive and work with administrations, but time and time and time and time and time again, we've been written off. Our action committee has been taken away from us, so that we haven't had the resources. The planning department was taken away with us, so we didn't have that support. And as Patty and Ashley have said, it's funded. And we've done all of the work. We don't have to revisit this. The community has weighed in. So I'm really, really, really excited about this moving forward this year.
What if we add at the end of the letter that we request immediately a meeting with the mayor and any officials that would be.
Well, we've done that before.
You
And
did
we
meet
were-
with the
we were
mayor?
Promised.
Well, we have a new
connectivity
mayor,
with
so we
the-
have to
It's
look at
better
it that way,
business.
because now we have a new administration.
Right.
So that's why we have to do it again, of course.
And so if it's on television to the world that this is happening, I can promise that the administration will put energy into it, and we shouldn't have to do that.
Well, I would recommend you go ahead and do that.
Well,
I
Because
would recommend that you give this new
I
administration,
think
which
we
is,
should
which
give
is an administration of action, as we've
Absolutely.
seen. And let's give this administration of the strongest letter that we can provide, and the opportunity to be able to respond fully and meet the needs of this current time. I understand your threats and I understand your frustration. Well, wherever they're coming from, I don't, it doesn't feel comfortable at this moment, especially when we're in a transition moment. I think that we need to, that's why I encourage, the alignment and to state up front, what the ask is, including the meeting and, the clear request up front and at the tail end of the letter. And let's approve this and get the strongest letter we can, and let's do everything we can to ensure that this happens.
Just to clarify, I'm really excited about this new administration and the action, and they're transitioning. They're still in that, right now, they're in their 30 to 90 day period of connecting with the community. And one of the things that I was going to bring up at the meeting was how excited I am that they are going to take action, because this is so easy. It's already funded. So I hope that I didn't come across as saying, if you don't do this, because that's not aloha.
You did.
Well, I was just echoing what the community has been saying out of frustration.
I understand the frustration, and I encourage you to encourage the community to understand it's a new administration.
As
So,
I have been, as I have been,
thank you.
just tell it, staying.
Okay.
Yeah, quick point of information. You have a really important card to play, and that is that some of those things don't cost anything. If you comment.
It costs a little, but they're.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, don't omit that. That would.
It is in the letter, I clarified. Thank you, Patty, for clarifying.
Okay,
Yes.
Thank you.
good. I will incorporate your suggestions and get this back to you.
Are you okay with that for 2 months, or do you want us to approve this letter with amendments and we can then
That,
get act upon it?
upgrade has to be sufficiently strong to meet your approval.
I think we've done that with the last letter we approved, that we afforded that opportunity, so with the planning commission support and your expertise. I personally would feel confident that you'd be able to deliver a perfect, strong letter to ensure that we can move this forward.
Very good. I would really like to see that happen and to request a meeting as soon as they can get it in their schedule. All of them, and I know how hard that is.
So I'd like to revise the motion on the floor to include the stated amendments for approval.
And,
Second?
do we have a second?
Yes, second.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay.
So if
At
we
this
can,
time,
I'm so sorry. Are
go
we
ahead,
calling,
Leila.
are we calling for a vote already?
I was about to, but
I know. I just want to make sure that we got in there in what I shared about like putting some of those bullet points of like what connectivity routes there are. I see it in that last third to last paragraph that you know, the one, our first priority connectivity location is, but like sharing some of the other ones, maybe just you know, whatever it is, I'm just saying.
I believe Patty's making notes on that. She's taking notes on that.
Thank you.
Okay, so are we ready? I would like to go ahead and call for a vote on this motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I
Aye. Okay, and the motion carries. Oh, pardon?
Oh, did we mention who we're sending it? And we're gonna send it to the people
Oh.
that were mentioned earlier? The agencies that were mentioned?
Yes, we're gonna send it to the agencies and the people mentioned earlier. Sorry.
Yeah, all the ones Virginia mentioned earlier, yes.
Okay. Okay. Great. I mean. Mariam. can move forward now?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, thank you, everybody, for all of your input on those items. Now we're going to the section for agenda items for next meeting, correct? Do any action committee members have any items they would like to agendize for a future meeting? Anything burning that you need to add to the next agenda?
Could we add on what we discussed
Just-
earlier?
the like on where we're at with
Uh-oh, I think maybe you're
infrastructure carrying capacity.
Leila, could you please restate that?
Chair, I'm not.
Sorry, we're having technical difficulties at this time. I think there's some internet connectivity issues, sorry. Let me try to ask you, Leila, to restate what you said one time.
If we can just have like an ongoing update on where we're at with like the state bills that are in the legislature right now in reference to our infrastructure.
Okay, thank you, Leila. And Ashley, you said you were trying to say something?
Yeah, I'm not on the committee. I'm so sorry, but I just wanted to put
Did
out.
you
there,
hear
'cause I've
me?
been-
Yes, Leila, we heard you. Thank you. Oh,
Okay, my office has been working on a bill for the revitalization of downtown Pahoa. Part of that would, you know, part of that strategy is to look at creating a special district of the downtown Pahoa area. And as I've been working with my office to look at the existing code, it was brought to my attention that there are a set of village guidelines that have been adopted, but there's a code provision that they be revisited every 10 years. The guidelines were adopted in 2014, and so 10 years has passed. And I just want to put it on your radar that I'd love to have a conversation with this body about the special district work, because the village design guidelines are another separate special district that supports the work and revitalization of downtown Pahoa.
Okay. Mahalo nui, Ashley. So we'll put that at that.
So we can agendize the special district in the village design guidelines. I'd also like to add an agenda item, please, update on the PONC application for consolidation of certain properties at Kumukahi in order to address Iwi Kupuna preservation and area management that is accompanied by a letter of support that I'll draft
Okay.
on behalf of the county.
Mahalo. Anybody else on the committee? No, okay. Do I take from just the committee?
Oh, it can be from the public.
Does anybody else have anything they'd like to add to the next agenda?
I'm not sure whether you want to add it, but the carrying capacity in regard to the proposed ADUs.
Oh, the carrying.
We did add that tracking for that.
That, okay, the reason we sure 9% that we'll add that.
That was the first agenda item for tracking the legislation on that.
Yes.
There's one other bill, SB 321, that is currently making it through the Senate and so far it hasn't passed everything. This will enable the community associations that don't have legal title to their roads to assume title on the dissolved corporations that built the roads and then dissolve without transferring the title to the community associations. Why this is very important is that none of the community associations who don't have title to their roads can make a contract with the county to use county funds until they own the roads.
Patty, will the legislation, we don't meet for 2 months, will this already be?
If people can keep track of 321, if it needs support, I will send out an email right away, but so far it's progressing well.
Okay. So. Thank you very much. Well, we wanna keep moving because I know that we've actually passed our time. We've got all the agenda items that we would like to add. The next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, April 24th, 2025. And we're on to announcements. The environmental notice, the Hawaiian Paradise Park District Park, and environmental assessment, is that what that is? The EA?
Yeah.
As you can see, there's a hyperlink for those interested in reading more about that. And then the planning department is currently seeking applicants for the Puna CDP Action Committee and is requesting assistance to get the word out to our interested community members. The application can be found on the mayor's office website. How do I read? Do I have to read that out? Okay, thank you. And finally, do any committee members or staff have any other announcements to make?
At our last meeting in December, there were two citizens that came that live in the subdivision on the old Keau Pahoa Road across the street from Keau High School. And they had, told us about the medical center that might be built next door to that subdivision. So it was being discussed at the county council, and it turns out I contacted a county council member, Onishi, today, and that bill was passed, or I should say rezoning was passed. So that section, I have a little map here if anyone wants to look at it. When I read it, it's taking this large acreage, maybe 20 acres, maybe 30 and subdividing it into 1 acre lots. That was my understanding of reading it. Anyway, I think the ball got rolling because, as the citizens explained to us when they came last meeting, that they were concerned that a medical center was going to be built there. And as it stands now, I guess it could happen. Probably there'll be more permitting and, you know, other factors involved to make that a realization, but at least the foundation has been set. Oh, thank you.
Any other on that one?
Well, I guess if anybody's concerned, I don't know what really can be done at this point because it already passed.
No, but thank you for the update, because I know
Yeah.
that I was interested in hearing more on where the
Right,
progress of that was,
right.
especially since my son goes to school not too far from there,
Right, that's right.
and a lot of community members are in between.
And
that
that's
area.
another very congested road. It's gonna get more congested.
If I could clarify,
Ashley?
there was a rezone request that was submitted to the council on that property that was just, talked about. As part of that request, it was alluded to that in addition to a subdivision, they were entertaining a medical facility, but the council cannot grant the property owner the ability to move forward with the health center. That would require a special permit from the planning commission. So they can continue to build a subdivision, but if they want to do the medical center, they would have to get a special permit from the planning commission. My understanding is because of all of the, public opposition to them situating the health center there, it sounds like that the medical center is going to be elsewhere. So I just want to make sure folks are aware of like what the council did and what the next step would be if the health center wanted to do something on that particular parcel, but it sounds like they're going to look for another site.
Okay, thank you for that update. Okay, and if that's it for everybody,
If that's it, I'd just like to take a moment and thank Leilani
Oh.
for taking the helm of leadership for our Puna CDP, and you did a really great job. Mahalo nui.
Thank
I know
you.
it's always anxious the first time, but mahalo.
thank you. I'm just happy to cool. And with that, thank you, Susie, and thank you, everybody, for making this my first meeting here go smoothly.
Good job.
Thank you. And if everybody's ready, let's adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Yeah. Okay, the time is 7:09, and please drive safe, everybody, and have a good evening. Thank you so much.
We will.
Aloha.
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 Yay.